My introduction to Salvador Dali happened when I acquired two original paintings and needed to get them authenticated. I approached Sotheby's and Christie's auction houses in New York and was promptly told that the only authentication that they would accept would be from Robert Duchamp in Paris. I contacted Robert Duchamp in Paris and began the authentication process. There was a great exchange of information. There was high resolution photographs produced for him, and after some time he came back and authenticated the paintings as being originals. But the process allowed me to experience firsthand the high level of scrutiny and due diligence that goes into each one of these authentication processes. About 30 years later, I decided to sell the paintings and again contacted Sotheby's in New York. They again asked me to contact Duchamp in Paris to have the paintings authenticated, but this time I'd be working with Nicholas Duchamp, Robert's son, who had been trained all his life in the authentication process. Again, information was submitted to Duchamp, the paintings were authenticated and sold through Sotheby's in New York. I think it was in 2010 that I was in St. Paul de Vence in the south of France and saw a Salvador Dali exhibition featuring the bronze artworks of Salvador Dali. I went and looked at them and I was absolutely amazed. They were absolutely gorgeous, exquisite detail, absolutely beautiful sculptures, some of the best I'd ever seen. At the same time, I'm thinking to myself, well, who's authenticated these? Who's made up the edition sizes? I made inquiries and the sales lady came back and to my delight said that these sculptures are authenticated by Robert Duchamp. I still wasn't convinced of how they came into production and their life story, so I wanted to get to the facts. So I started making a lot of inquiries and was eventually introduced to IAR Art Resources in Switzerland, who I was told were the official publishers of this collection of Salvador Dali sculpture. IAR Art Resources also trade under the name the Dali Universe, who hold major exhibitions around the world featuring the monumental sculptures. To date, over 12 million people have attended these exhibitions. They also own and operate the Dali Paris Museum in Montmartre, which is a major tourist attraction. The first person I researched was Benjamin Levy, who is recognised as a modern art expert. His company, IAR Art Resources, is the publisher of the Dali Sculpture Collection. In the 1960s and 70s, Gallery Levy in Milan was featuring many of the surrealist painters and began working with Salvador Dali. It was Mr. Levy who suggested to Salvador Dali that he create bronze editions of his most iconic paintings. Contracts were negotiated and Dali then set about creating the individual maquettes, which are either actual clay or plaster moulds created by Dali, or a set of detailed drawings prepared by Dali for the foundry artisans to create the model on which the bronze sculpture is based. These maquettes are simply a vehicle to convey the artist idea to the foundry. Most bronzes are made this way, and once the idea is transformed into a wax model and approved, bronzes can be produced. Most limited edition bronzes are produced in small numbers, from say 12 to 30, and to a large extent that number is estimated on what the artist thinks the demand is going to be for that particular sculpture. The price of original Dali paintings were already prohibitive, so in part the vision was to perpetuate the Dali legacy by creating edition sizes large enough to keep the pricing affordable and at the same time support a global demand well into the future. This was unheard of and a very surreal marketing idea that threw some of the art establishment into a bit of a frenzy, and many were very quick to criticise. I don't believe that any modern master had ever done this, and I get the idea that Dali and Mr. Levy wanted to see how far they could take it. Editions including everything from diamond-encrusted sculpture to museum and monumental sizes were put into the schedule. These larger sculptures all had low edition numbers, but there were also more reasonable sized bronzes which are known as multiples, where the edition number was expanded into hundreds per edition. I've had the privilege of touring the foundry twice now, and what really strikes you is the level of passion and dedication from a seasoned team of committed artisans that consider it an honour to be working on such exquisite works of art. There is a reverence in the way things are done. In fact, director Andrea Zeno, who has worked there for 25 years, actually lives above the foundry. Each Dali sculpture comes with a certificate of authenticity confirming that it was produced at Paseo, which in my opinion is not a small thing. I now had the privilege of researching Robert Deschamps. Robert Deschamps was Salvador Dali's publisher, photographer, secretary, and close friend for the last half of his life, approximately 40 years. He was responsible for cataloguing over 60,000 photographs, publishing many books on Dali, and in 1984 actually rescued Dali from the fire that nearly claimed his life. Simply put, there's no one more knowledgeable or closer to Dali than Robert Deschamps. His definitive catalogue raisonné, The Hard and the Soft, is regarded as the Bible for Dali collectors, museums and auction houses worldwide. I was delighted to discover that it has 20 pages that include the entire IAR Dali sculpture collection. Not only are the sculptures in demand, but as Dali and Mr. Levy predicted, the demand is increasing as the exhibitions travel to different parts of the world. It's an absolute success story, and it's completely unique. Mr. Levy has committed over half his life to the advancement of Salvador Dali artworks and preserving his legacy. As a dealer, my obligation is to research the authenticity and make sure that the artworks that we're representing have value and ultimately provide great joy and satisfaction to our clients. I couldn't be more thrilled to have already exhibited on 3 continents and hope that you've learned a little bit more about the Salvador Dali bronze sculptures and all the people that are involved in this process. Thank you for watching and happy collecting.